between us and them a great gulf is fixed, so that those who are in torment may not cross over to be with those living in the love of God, and so that those living in the presence of God may not go down to them. What is that great gulf that is fixed? If you are for one moment imagining that there is a magnificent court of heaven where all the righteous are, and there is a great gulf, and those who are suffering in Hades or in hell, forget it. When we look at the parables of Jesus, we can almost always only take one point, because Jesus is emphasizing one thing. We can't pick up the little bits and decide, oh yeah, that bit, that's... Otherwise we would have to think of heaven not as being in the presence of God, but nestling in Abraham's bosom. To be bosom Abraham would need, depending how many of us are going to heaven. No. The point that Jesus is making in this wonderful parable is that those who are rich and ignore the poor have no hope in hell of getting into the presence of God. It's okay to be rich, but you must not ignore the poor. What's rich? Well, we can work it out in financial terms, we can work it out in possessions or whatever. But we must not, even if we're poor, we must not ignore and forget others who are poor. Where do we see in this parable those who are doing good? The dogs. The dogs, seeing this poor man covered in sores, came to lick his sores. The spit of dogs is a wonderful thing. It's antiseptic. I'm sure Donna Elizabeth will agree with me on that. Especially the spit of border collies, which they lavishly spread around. I can remember people used to criticise me when I still had my dogs, that they ate off the same plate that I ate off. And once they'd licked out the top of my coffee mug, I would carry on and drink the rest of the coffee. Dreadful. Americans quake at the very thought. Germs, germs, germs. But get back to this point that Jesus is making in this wonderful parable. When we ignore those who are poor, we cut ourselves off from the blessing which God wants to give to us. When we walk through Longton, Stoke, Hanley, Bucharest, wherever, there will be beggars. They have been put there in our way so that God may bless us. So that as we give of what we have, God gives to us. Or we become like the rich man. He hasn't even got a name in the parable, although in the West people call him Dives, meaning a rich man, but not a name. When we look at the rich man, he has no love of God in him. No doubt he keeps all the commandments, but without any love. This poor man at his door, there at his door, is his opportunity to be blessed. But no, he doesn't take that opportunity. He ignores the poor man, and no doubt is very relieved when the man dies, because he will stop attracting the dogs and the flies to his door. And Jesus carries on in the parable. We still see the attitude of the rich man when he says, "Send Lazarus to my brothers." When we see poor people, what do we think? Do we think like the rich man, they'll only waste it on drugs and booze? Or, why don't they get a job like I do? Or, they shouldn't be there. We've got a welfare state. Let them apply for universal credit or whatever they can get. I'm not giving them anything. I've got nothing in my pocket. Of course, these days you may have nothing in your pocket except a plastic card. And I haven't yet met any beggars who hold out a card thing. Always make sure that you have some money in your pocket, because God will put these people in front of you so that you can show His love to them, so that He can bless you. They are a channel for God's blessing. Don't ignore them. Don't judge them. Don't cross over to the other side of the road so that you're not actually passing them at all. If you know they're there, head for them. If you could see that person as Christ, would you cross over to the other side? Or would you make sure that you've got nothing to give? No, if you could see Christ there, sitting on the pavement with dirty feet, with a dirty face, then you would go over to him. You would go to him, and you would give him what you have. It always amuses me that when, at this time of year, we see people like Crisis and the Salvation Army and these homeless charities, when they put adverts on the television, it's always a young person with a fresh complexion, all their own teeth, no scars. And we're urged to give because we feel sorry for that young person. This isn't the attitude that we should have. We shouldn't give to people because we feel sorry for them. No, that isn't what it's about. You give to them because they are God sitting waiting to bless you. This is the way in which we should be as Christians. Many years ago, when I went to whatever the name of the place is now, Czechoslovakia then, went into the cathedral in Czechoslovakia where the soldiers were imprisoned, hiding, and all eventually killed. And when the Nazis got to the place in the end, they killed the bishop and all the priests, and then set about the Orthodox Christians. When you come out of the liturgy in most Orthodox countries, you will find people sitting there on the ground with a bowl, or these days, a plastic cup, begging. What you do, I have been to church, I am now holy, I have nothing in my pocket. You may as well not have gone to church. I think it's St. John Chrysostom says, if you cannot see God in the beggar at the door of the church, you will not receive him in the chalice. We have God's love. We must share it or lose it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.